Hi, welcome to ECA's podcast with Alison Warner and Dan Jackson, also known as Dan's the Engineer. And we're here today to talk about growth and prosperity. One of ECA's missions in life is to lead the industry to growth and prosperity, and it offers its members a series of information about upcoming issues. It campaigns government, and it offers members services to support their business through growth and prosperity. So we're here today to talk about how the challenges that people face in setting up their businesses and going it alone. Reflecting on my own experience at ECA, you can go from the client who says, and I'm quoting them, not me, "I'm just an electrician, I wouldn't know much about this stuff, Rob." Mm-hmm. And I've gone back to them and said, well, hang on, you were an electrician, you are now a business owner that happens to be an electrician. To some of the more successful, iconic members of our industry who are still around in very senior positions, who have grown businesses over the years, who have said the most important thing through their careers has been having their Cobra team, if you like.
Yeah.
Them and recruiting them at the right points of their trajectory as a business.
Yeah.
I think one of the key challenges we see is the business owner making that step as the business grows to not just having a good team of electricians in this example, but then when the business continues to grow, how do they then replace themselves? So often I find that they're going round checking on the jobs, keeping standards at a high standard, checking on how things are going, and they find it very difficult to step back from that. So they might have somebody in mind that they think they could put in a supervisory position, but what I often find is missing is there's nothing written down. There's no ops checklists. There's no tools given to that promoted person to then manage the teams.
They kind of like outgrow themselves, don't they, within their business?
You've mentioned a couple of things there, which I think as challenges could be, and using you as an example, Dan, how do you step off the tools and make sure that your frontline team are capable, competent and quality assured? B, how do you supervise that as their manager? As Alison, you mentioned, then you're stepping into the realms of you need different functional management, which is the next growth point, HR, IT, accountancy, so that you can sit at the head and make sure that you're steering the business in a certain direction.
You need it documented essentially as well. It's like any business, in order for it to grow. I worked for Starbucks for 8 years and Pizza Hut before that. And those businesses, although obviously a completely different industry, they had everything written down for how a coffee shop or a pizza unit should operate. So it was very, very simple to train somebody because it was all written down right from opening the door in the morning to closing it at night. And that's often what is missing. It's easy to put in place, but it's often what is missing. And I frequently work with frustrated clients saying, look, I've told little Johnny how to do this and he's still not doing it. And I'm saying, well, have you written it down? Have you got any checklist to help him?
Yeah.
So your standing operating procedures are a crisis point and they're a fix. If we look at that as that helps you standardise as you grow, but how do you communicate that, make sure everybody's on board? My question to you is, does that lose identity as well? Because using Dan as the archetypal example here, he stepped away from the tools, he's now managing the team, he's now created the standing operating procedures. He feels a loss of control.
Yeah, I mean, as a business owner, if you're a control freak and you can't let go, you're never going to progress ever. Sometimes you just need to let go and go, that's for her to deal with, that's for him to deal with.
Yeah.
You do lose some identity and you change, but as you get older in life anyway, no one's the same than when you were 16 years old. We all change, we all develop, we all have different interests. There's no difference with your business. It started at something and it'll be something very different in 10 years' time. And it's just, I suppose it's just embracing that journey a little bit. But there is an identity change as you go. And it's hard to say it is different, and I've had the same thing where I've had struggles letting go, but when I did let go to the right people, it went really well. But it's getting the right people is very, very challenging, as Alison will know. It's very challenging. You do go through people after time. There's no. What I say to my clients very simply is you need to attract the right people to your business. There's no simple equation for that.
And presumably there's a moment where the standing operating procedures help you solve succession crisis, because your next weakness, if you've created your COBRA team, is that you lose one. So unless you've got everything written down, you've lost the knowledge too. But if you step into that point where you are able to sit above and look down at the business, work on it, not in it, at certain points throughout the year, you can also notice then that as long as they're getting the right results, the fact that they didn't do it the way you would have done it becomes irrelevant.
Yeah,
I think it's there's lots of things that we're talking about here. So I think as a business grows, it does stop becoming about you, and the business takes on, it is a separate entity. If you're running a limited company, it is a separate entity. It's about having your dashboard, I like to call it, in place with all of your measures. So ideally you want to get the business to a place where it's automated to the point where you can press a button and you can see, how is my business operating today in the areas of my customer service, my sales growth and profitability growth, my team engagement. I should be able to see those things and see if there's something that I need to respond to. So if it can be set up, there's so many systems out there nowadays with technology that it's possible to see that kind of information, that those metrics, which then informs your decision making, as opposed to running around like a busy fool visiting all of the sites and all of the projects and getting involved. It's moving to a structure that you would have in a large organisation.
And again, there's software out there that does
Absolutely.
that, and there's software that will do that for a one-man band to someone who has 20 people working for them. And you might start with the one-man band software that's suitable for that, and in 5 years' time, you might change to a bigger, more suitable product.
So we were at an ECA meeting this morning where we had 25 plus contractors, and the topic they'd asked me to talk about, because we're led by our members, was about negotiating contracts. So we went through the strategy, the power play between David and Goliath when they're entering into contracts. And one of the interesting questions towards the end was, I'd outlined the payment cycle and how critical that is in terms of expenditure to revenue, to the business health. And they said, this seems very complicated. How do we get over it? So we segued straight into, there are digital apps, as you mentioned, take advantage of the software. And then the second question, which was most interesting, was, I've got apps, I've got this software for that, and I've got something else. Where do I go next? And my answer, which I'd be interested in whether you agree or disagree, is you can go down the road of what they call an ERP, an enterprise resource planning system, a one-stop shop software that will locate your fleet, your tools, track depreciation within your account system, holiday entitlements, a whole number of things, and manage your payments to suppliers, supply chain and above. But nowadays, because some of your work is dictated by your clients and they may use other software, it might be about buying in step by step the right apps for the right processes.
Yeah, I mean, there's no single app out there that does everything. Not a single app. And I spoke to an owner of a software company recently, and he said the most important thing about any software, whether it's job management tool, whether it's financial, whatever, HR, however it manages, is that it has an open API that can integrate with other apps. That's one of the most important things, because then you're not limited. So you have the option, and a lot of people are very scared of changing their job management tool. As long as you can manage that data and it's not in a job management tool only, and you can export it and import it in another way, it's your data, you can do what you want with it. But there are so many apps out there. We use Google, we use Microsoft, we use all these fancy apps for job management. We use Xero. There's loads out there, but they just replace people essentially.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I agree with all of that. An API is really, really important, the ability to talk to other software that you've got in place. In my experience, it's where the challenge often lies is with the team that are out in the field, because they're practical people and often they're not that tech savvy. And so to get them to fill out the job cards and put sufficient detail on there and to close out a job, getting them to do that is often a big challenge.
Therein lies a big debate, though, because you have different crowds within our own industry. It may not be defined by age, before I go down an alley of political incorrectness, but you still have those who don't want to embrace the change. I've been asked to do a number of talks at digital transformation conferences, and then you have the natives and you have the translators in the middle. Reflecting on a conversation I had with a startup self-employed electrician in late 2019, one of the most striking things he said to me was, I've gone it alone, I now employ another, I have my tools, my van, I'm still on the tools. The only way I'm not going to run myself into the ground is to employ as much integrated technology to run the business. Give me the management information you both alluded to earlier, so that when I'm working on the business, which is his evening job, I've got speed, productivity and certainty. And I think as far as today's concerned, let me thank you both for some real hard-hitting insight into how to start a business and what the key challenges are in your early days and as you grow through those businesses. That's really, really helpful. So Alison Warner, thank you very much. And Dan Jackson, Dan's the engineer, thank you too.
Thank you for having me.